Hey, come see us on tour. We're going to be in Los Angeles, Columbus, Ohio, Dayton, Cleveland, Cincinnati, Lexington, Kentucky, Burbank, California, and Honolulu. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for tickets.
Jeremy Loffredo is a Washington, D.C.-based journalist who's worked on various independent documentaries and formerly produced news programs at RT America. His work has appeared in The Grayzone, The Defender, Rebel News, and Unlimited Hangout. More recently, Loffredo was one of 5 journalists detained in Israel for reporting on the Gaza-Israel conflict and charged with endangering national security and aiding and sharing information with the enemy.
Now, other than that, how was your trip?
Other than that, other than the detainment, I hear the weather is beautiful.
Yeah.
So how are you, Jeremy?
I'm doing very well now that I'm home. Thanks for asking.
Of course. So these charges were built around this particular report that you did, which other outlets without any consequence had also reported on. So why don't you tell people about what exactly their premise for detaining you was?
Their premise for detaining me was they told me that there was secret and sensitive information in that report, and that putting the locations of the missile strikes and the missile contact that could have been used by the enemies or Iran to recalibrate their future strikes and hit more precisely and accurately. So they were asking me every few questions in interrogations. They would ask me if I have any connections to the Iranian military or the Iranian state, at which I don't. No to both of those questions, I would say no to. And so, like, they were on one hand, they were saying I'm a journalist who broke military censorship orders, and on the other hand, they were saying I did it deliberately on behalf of Iran.
Now, you were detained with 4 other journalists originally. Yeah. Why did they only hold you? Because they let the rest of them go, yes?
Yeah, that's correct. I mean, so I published this video report on October 4th, I believe it was, and on October 8th. So my entire plan was to go to Israel and the West Bank and report on violence happening in the northern West Bank, the raids and the sieges happening in Nablus and Tulkarm and Jenin, these refugee camps. That was my plan. And I got there on October 1st, the day of the Iranian missile strike. So I spoke to Max Blumenthal, and he said, you're there. It's really newsworthy. It's really important. Might as well, file a report about this Iranian missile strike. So I thought, okay, Let's make a video that tries to find these where the missiles fall. I go around with my taxi driver. I try to find the locations. So 4 days later, I'm finally beginning my trip to the northern West Bank. I'm just planning on spending a few weeks up there, and we get stopped at one of the military checkpoints, which, there's hundreds of them in the West Bank, and they ask us for our passports, which is, pretty regular, requests for the army and these checkpoints. We hand over our passports. They come back and they ask us, we're actually going to need to see all of your cell phones. And my cell phone's locked, and I'm a journalist, and there's nothing in my cell phone that isn't, a valid journalistic inquiry. I am messaging people who live in these places where Israel will consider, all these people terrorists because of their political beliefs. But I wouldn't be the first journalist to go to Jenin refugee camp and interview people. That's not I know that's not illegal. I don't know, of course, I don't know what they would consider illegal, but I know I'm an American. I'm allowed to be in the West Bank, and I'm talking in the capacity of a journalist to a lot of people who are also in the West Bank. So I hand over my cell phone. It's locked anyway. One of the journalists who I was with refused to hand over his cell phone. He was dragged out of the car. The rifle, the army rifle, was pointed in his face. He was hit a few times, and then they took his cell phone, and they told everyone to get out of the car and to sit on the dirt beside the military checkpoint. And they walked away with all of our cell phones and all of our passports. And so maybe after an hour, they say, Mr. Loffredo, and they call me over across the street, and I say, what's going on? And they say, you're under arrest. And they immediately take about 30 feet of kind of cloth, and they tightly wrap it around my head. This is around my eyes, my ears, even my nose a little bit. So they blindfold me, they shackle my legs, and they handcuff me, and they put me aside. And they actually do this to all of the journalists I was with. And we get loaded up into a military Humvee, and they drive around. It seems arbitrary. It doesn't seem like they're going anywhere. There's a few soldiers in the back of the truck with us. They're speaking Hebrew. They're joking with us. They're asking if we love Israel. They're taunting us. They're asking us questions and then telling us not to talk. And then we stop. We all get moved from the military Humvee to a police vehicle, still blindfolded, still handcuffed, still shackled. And it takes us to a West Bank military checkpoint, which is right next to one of the largest police stations, army stations in the West Bank. It's about 7 miles east of Jerusalem. And we're all loaded into kind of holding cells. And then everyone's let go, except me. And I stand in the holding cell for another maybe hour or so. And then one of the officers comes in and says, there's a lawyer on the phone for you. I say, okay. And I go, and before I answer the phone, they tell me to stop, and they pull out a big flag that's kind of like their nationalistic wartime slogan. It says, together we will win, in Hebrew. And they take photos of me in front of it on their iPhones, for their group chats. It's nothing official. They're just laughing at me and taking photos of me in front of this flag. And then after that, they let me go into the room and talk to a lawyer. And I answer the phone. And I still, at this point, I have no idea what's happening. They were all let go because they're Israeli. And yes, maybe they were in a part of the West Bank that they weren't supposed to be in. But they just get a slap on the wrist. They're told not to go into the West Bank for another 15 days. And that's it. But I'm still there. And I'm the only one who was American. So I'm the only one who technically wasn't breaking the law. Americans are allowed in these parts of the West Bank. So I don't know what's happening. I answer the phone.
The others were not allowed in the West Bank?
They're allowed in the West Bank, but they're not allowed in Area A, which is Nablus. Area A is a part of the West Bank that Israelis are not allowed in.
I see.
Yeah.
And was this lawyer assigned by the court, or this was your personal lawyer? Who was this?
This lawyer was the other people who were let go. As soon as they left, they called this human rights NGO, and they were told not to speak to me on their way out. So they thought he seems to be in more trouble than us. So they left, and they called this human rights NGO, who then gave me a lawyer.
I see.
Yeah.
So what happened from there?
So I answer the phone, and she says, Mr. Loffredo, I want you to think very hard. What did you do? How could you be in this much trouble? I said, what do you mean? She said, you're being charged with giving information to the enemy during wartime. And I was dumbfounded. I had no idea what I had done. I was, really frightened. I said, I did make this video. Perhaps they're talking about the video. The lawyer speaks very little English. So I'm trying to communicate to her with what I might have done. She's not really understanding me. I'm barely understanding her. The phone call lasts maybe 40 seconds. At this point, there's already an intelligence officer kind of rushing me off the phone. And she says, listen, they're going to interrogate you. They're probably going to bring you to the prison. And then I'll see you in court probably tomorrow. And then the phone call ended. And that was it.
So they kept you locked up for a few days, and then you were eventually released. And now you're obviously, thank God, back home. Yeah. Do you want to describe what those days were like in custody and how you were eventually set free?
I was, it's called the Russian compound. It's in Jerusalem. There's a prison at the Russian compound. I was kept in solitary confinement for 3.5 days. I was given very little food or water. I was given one chocolate cup of pudding over the course of 3.5 days and a few Dixie cups of water. The prison guards treated me like a terrorist. They saw my slip in front of my solitary confinement cell and said, giving information to the enemy during wartime. And they all thought oh, so we're dealing, we have an enemy of the state here. He looks American. He looks white. There's 100 Palestinian prisoners here and this one white guy. But this one white guy happens to have a more serious charge than anyone in this prison. I would ask what time it was, because like learning what time it is in solitary confinement, it was pretty important. They wouldn't tell me what time it was. It was truly a nightmare. It was this tiny little concrete cell. There's 4 bunks in there. They gave me my own cell, and it was dark, and there was a little blanket on top of one of the slabs of concrete, which is, that's a bed. So I was there the first night. I was taken out of my cell the following afternoon and brought to court, and I was able to speak to my lawyer for like 30 seconds before the hearing, and I couldn't even really understand her. So that just goes to how the justice system works for people who are accused of high crime. Maybe it's the same here. I've just never experienced it. But I go in front of the lawyer. The police say we need him to stay in detention for 7 days. We need to go through his phone. We want to interrogate him more. We need to go through his laptop. And the judge says, well, why can't you do all those things while he's not in detention? And they said, we think he's a threat to the state of Israel. He's dangerous if he's not in jail. And the judge said, why do you say that? And they said, it's top secret. And it didn't seem like the judge truly didn't like that answer. She didn't seem like she believed it. So instead of 7 days, the judge said, you can have 1 day. You can interrogate him more. You can go through all of his stuff. You have 1 day, and then we'll be in court again tomorrow. So I was brought back to solitary confinement for court the next day. And at this point, still, they hadn't given me any food. I'm let out of solitary confinement, brought to court the next day. And my lawyer says, this is a journalist. He's here to testify on behalf of you. And there's a journalist from Ynet, a giant Israeli publication. And he says, he's a Zionist. He doesn't agree with my reporting at all. He doesn't agree with the Grayzone. But he said, I published the same information that this journalist published. And then I reported on the fact that he was detained. And the military censor allowed me to embed his report in my article. So not only did I, in the beginning, publish just what he published, then I published exactly what he published by putting his video in my article. And he has a GPO card, a government press office card. And everyone who has a government press office card in Israel is mandated to WhatsApp the military censor office, no matter what they report, no matter what they tweet, everything. And so he had a conversation between himself and the military censor office with them okaying my video and his reporting, saying that there's nothing secret here. So he showed the judge the cell phone conversation in WhatsApp. The judge said, so he's allowed to publish all this stuff. And so is he. So it's, that's it. And the judge ordered my release. And I was signing all my papers to get out of the prison. And the police appealed the decision after the window for appealing the decision closed. So the court let them do whatever they wanted. I'm signing the papers. They say a few things in Hebrew, and they grab me, and they put me back in solitary confinement, and they don't tell me why, and they tell me nothing. So I'm just sitting in my cell again, totally unaware of what happened. A few hours pass, maybe it's midnight now, and 2 plainclothes detectives, like intelligence officers, come to my cell. They grab me, and they put me in an unmarked police vehicle. I still have my shackles and handcuffs on. And they drive out to the West Bank military compound that I was originally detained at and questioned at. And they tell me that we're going there for interrogation. I'm in the back of a car. I'm scared. What does interrogation mean? Are you guys gonna, torture me? What's happening? It's we get out, we go to the office. No one's in this entire compound office building. There's no one there. As we walk down the hallways like a movie, the lights are turning on because they're motion activated. Like it's really spooky. We go into an office and he interrogates me. That never touches me. But he asks me the same questions that they asked me during the first interrogation. It doesn't seem like they've really learned anything new or thought of anything else to ask me. I was sure that this interrogation was going to involve maybe what they found on my cell phone. They were going to ask me about my political beliefs, but they didn't. They just asked me about this video. Once again, do I understand what a military censor is? Why did I break the law? Why did I include the details of where the missiles had landed? Do I have any connections to foreign militaries? Just this kind of stuff, semantics, asking the same question over again, different ways to see if I give different answers. And then it was over. They did a DNA swab on me after that interrogation, and they took my fingerprints of each hand, each finger. And then I was sent back to solitary confinement in the middle of the night. And they told me, they said, we appealed the decision, and we have you have to go to court tomorrow. It'll be at a higher court because it was after an appeal, the Jerusalem District Court, early in the morning. So at least I had a little information of what was happening next.
Right.
And it was kind of like a positive development because I'm leaving there. I'm thinking like they really didn't. They're asking me the same questions and I'm answering them confidently and honestly. It seems like it was almost like a last ditch effort to maybe get me to say something that I hadn't said before, but that was it. So I go back to my cell. I go to sleep. I wake up. They give me a chocolate pudding cup. That was the first time I was fed. I go to court.
And how many days is that at that point?
That was day 3. I'm waking up and now it's the third day.
Chocolate pudding.
Yeah, exactly. They gave me chocolate pudding. And actually, this is the morning that a social worker did like a wellness check on me. She was sent by the embassy. So the embassy called the prison and said, there's an American citizen there, check on him. And the social worker came to my cell, opened the steel slide, and I said, oh, this is great. Maybe I'm going to get water. Maybe I'm going to get food. This is amazing. She said, why'd you hurt Israel? Do you love Israel? And that's all she said. And she asked me.
It's from the American embassy.
Well, the American embassy sent me like a military age Zionist Israeli social worker to come like check on me. And they didn't even fake check on me. They just asked me and berated me and asked me why I did what I did and why I hurt Israel and if I love Israel. Did not ask me how I was doing, did not ask me if I needed anything. And that was the only form of help that the American embassy gave me, was this Israeli social worker who did no wellness check at all. They just asked me, essentially called me a criminal, told me I'm a bad person, and then shut the steel slide. And that was all the help from America. But a few hours later, they bring me back to court, and now it's a nicer court. It's a bigger court. It's a district court in East Jerusalem. And at this point, I had my friends and I had people from the Grayzone sort of make just like a dossier, not exhaustive at this point, but just a short dossier of all the examples of Israeli media and American media inside of Israel reporting the same exact things that I did before me, and sometimes with more detail. So, just names of publications, screenshots, names of the authors, and the dates. So we brought that to court with us. And my lawyer managed to convince the judge that I was not a threat. The police said they need me in court for another 6 days at this point. They need to keep interrogating me. They need to go through my phone. They just broke into it. So now they need to go through it. And the judge said, okay, well, you can keep his phone, but he doesn't need to be in detention. So at that point, this is October 11th. I was let out under the agreement that I stay in the country. They keep my passport. They keep my phone. They keep my laptop. And whenever they ask me to come to this West Bank military compound for interrogation, I do so immediately. So I said I had no choice. I said, of course. Sorry.
No, it's okay.
And then I'm staying at one of my friend's houses in Jerusalem, and I get a call from my lawyer that says, listen, we've only been able to talk, 30 seconds at a time before court. We don't know if you're going to get called back in for interrogation. We don't know if we're going to have to go back to court. Just come to my house. Let's go over everything in entirety and just make sure we have everything understood. I said, of course. I did that. The next day, they called me in for interrogation. I thought they were just telling me to stay for 10 days because they want to bother me. They don't like my politics and they want to make my life hard. But no, they called me back. It was a 7-hour long interrogation where they just kind of talked about this 6-minute video the entire time.
That has been republished by Ynet. That you have established more detailed information has appeared in other publications, and they're still questioning you about this at this point.
Yeah, in that video, I took I found one of the missile impact sites a mile away from Nevatim Air Base. I took a video of the missile, and in Israeli media, you had satellite images from inside the airbase the next day. Like, I was a mile away in a random part of the desert, and for some reason I'm giving too much sensitive information to the enemy when you have Israeli media publishing images from inside this, sensitive base. They asked me about why did I put the coordinates. I said, providing as much context and information is like just a priority for me as a journalist, for, just the readers and viewers, as much information as possible. They asked me, they said, so you're a journalist, you've taken journalism classes. You expect us to believe that you've never taken a class and learned about the importance of a military censor? I said, no, we have the First Amendment in America. Like, that's just not how I was taught about being a journalist, being a reporter, publishing information. But I am aware of the fact that you have a military censor. I just saw your entire mainstream media apparatus publishing the same information of me. So I assumed it wasn't secret. And they asked me, again and again in 1,000 different ways if I have ties to, foreign militaries. 7 hours of just questions like that. And then they asked me, it got really chaotic towards the end of the 7 hours, where I had detectives running in and out of my interrogation room, asking me questions about messages on my phone. And they were asking me questions, and they would leave the room, and as if they were going through my phone and seeing if I was telling the truth or not. And they come back and ask me more questions and do the same thing over and over. They were very, very interested in this PBS NewsHour video that I kept bringing up, that I'm sure you guys saw on Twitter. Nick Schifrin, it has like 4 million views. He's in front of the Mossad headquarters the night of the attacks. He's showing the camera the crater in Tel Aviv. He's showing the camera how close it is to the Mossad headquarters. And I told the detectives, that's one of the videos that I saw. That's the only reason I was able to find the impact site in Tel Aviv. And they kept kind of brushing me off as if they didn't believe that this video existed. They kept saying PBS, like mimicking me. I was like, no, this is very important. This is the crux.
It's the whole case, right? Because what you're saying, if I understand this right, is that you were basing your reporting on previous reporting that did not violate the censor.
Exactly. And Nick Schifrin has a GPO card. All of his reporting is subject to the military censor. So if Nick Schifrin, of PBS NewsHour, is posting this video, it goes to show either that it's not about the information in my video and it's about the politics of myself and Grayzone, or it's about the information, in which case it's not secret. Nick Schifrin said all the same things I did of PBS NewsHour.
So this didn't violate the censor, but they obviously didn't want this information out there. Why is that? Is it because they didn't want to give Iran the propaganda win of having fired close to those targets? Is it because they didn't want the Israeli people to know that Iran had fired on military targets and not civilian targets? What do you think is the reason, and there may be multiple, why they didn't want this information out there?
Yeah, no, I think there are multiple reasons. When they're trying to justify the information being a threat to the state of Israel, of course, in the interrogation room, they're saying they don't want that information out there because Iran can look at my video and see where the missiles landed and then recalibrate their future attacks and actually hit their targets more precisely and, kill people and destroy Israeli infrastructure. So the forward-facing justification for not allowing the information out is that the enemy will use my information and attack more precisely next time. Of course, there's also a propaganda angle to it that they don't want the Israeli public to know that they are so vulnerable. Whenever there's a missile strike, you see about it on Twitter, kind of anonymous accounts in Israel. I'll see it on Twitter. I'll be with a taxi driver. I'll say, they hit a house. They hit a house outside Tel Aviv. They struck a residential street in Haifa, and they just almost they refuse to believe it. No, they say no. I'll say, no, look, it's right here. They really did. And like, he'll say, no, they didn't do that. Like, they don't want to believe, even when the information is put in front of them, that that the missiles are hitting. The missiles, they're not protected by the Iron Dome at some point. So they don't want the Israeli public to know that they are, at risk, or getting attacked, or successfully getting attacked. And they say that they don't want the enemy to use the information against them. Apparently, even in the interrogation, he said, Nasrallah said in an interview long ago that watching the Israeli media after a rocket attack is the best, the best form of intelligence, because they report on where the missiles had fallen, and that helps us a lot. I don't know if that's true. I've never fact checked that, but that's a story that I was told in interrogation to make it seem like I'm helping out terrorists.
Well, why single you out? Why you?
Yeah, I mean, it's like, it's not even that they said that you are, breaking some military censorship law. They went, way, way, way past that. And they ended up accusing me of, kind of these terrorism offenses.
Wow. This must have been so terrifying. What's going through your mind as all of this is happening?
It's half and half. It's like, it's terrifying because I'm being told that, the punishment for if I'm convicted of these charges is 25 years to life, to the death penalty. And like, of course, that's an insane thing to hear. I'm like pacing back and forth in my cell, and I'm thinking like, okay, maybe if they let me out in 10 years for good behavior, I'll be 38 years old. I'm not that, it's not that old. It's fine. It's like, I'm justifying this in crazy ways. On the other hand, I'm seeing with my own eyes that 2 judges and then 3 judges in a row, they were siding with me, this anti-Zionist leftist, even though they're, Zionist Jews and Israeli judges, they're siding with me over these intelligence officers and police officers. They're saying, you want 7 days? How about 1 day? You want 7 days? How about 0 days? And now he's free. You guys can keep interrogating him and keep questioning him. But according to us, the judges, we don't think he's a threat. So knowing that the courts were on my side, and knowing that the truth was on my side, because I would put together these dossiers of so much proof that the Israeli media published exactly what I did in more detail way before me. I mean, I knew I was right. Like, there was no doubt in my mind that what I had done was fine. So at the end of this interrogation, they asked me, who sent you this PBS NewsHour video that you keep talking about? They don't believe that exists. I say, well, Max Blumenthal sent it to me on October 2nd in iMessage. They say, you sure it wasn't WhatsApp? And they're just like trying to psych me out. Like, they're not in my phone, but they're acting like they are. I said, no, it was iMessage. And then finally they like give up. It's a chaotic moment, and they tell me to go home. So after this 7-hour interrogation, it ends in such a chaotic way where I know for a fact that this is not over. I'm gonna come back here, but I don't know when. And this is like day 2 of my 10 days in the big prison in Israel. And so I go back to my friend's house where I'm staying for the 10 days. I get a call the next day. I'm with my lawyer already. They called the lawyer. They said, we want Jeremy to come in. We want him to unlock his phone. We want to see this Max Blumenthal text message about this PBS NewsHour video. We want to click on the PBS NewsHour video, and we want to watch it.
And they don't have Google?
Well, that's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking this is day 3 of me being, out of prison and still in the country, and then day 7 of them having my cell phone. And I've been through court 3 times where I keep bringing up this PBS NewsHour video. These are detectives. You think that they would have looked it up by now, and maybe they did. Like, I don't know
your video, the one that you guys did.
No, I'm thinking they would have looked it up by now. Meaning the PBS NewsHour video.
PBS, right?
Yeah, because I brought it up so much, and I'm using it to justify my own video. You think they'd just watch it,
Right.
So I go in there.
Sounds like it might have been a trick to get you to unlock your phone.
That's what I was thinking as well. I'm thinking like, are they looking at a camera above me and they'll see me put in my passcode? Or they're just going to rip the phone from my hands and go through it. Like, what rights do I really have? I don't know. But I go in there. I don't really have a choice. I try to unlock my phone and I put my passcode in incorrectly by accident. And it said iPhone disabled for 15 minutes. So it kind of told me that they had been trying to get in and they couldn't. But I put it in because like I knew that I had that text there. I knew, and I didn't even know if they actually wanted to see the text. I wasn't sure if this was just a pretext for them to go through my phone. They like just saying, we want to see this one text message. I wasn't sure what was happening. Really scared. Unlocked the phone, showed them the text from Max Blumenthal on October 2nd, exactly where I said it would be. We click on it and it loads. You see the tweet, you see the thumbnail of the tweet, but it says like content unavailable.
Right.
So he like takes a video on his phone of it saying content unavailable. I know that I just watched it on my cell phone in Jerusalem hours before and the night before that probably. So I'm wondering what's happening. Like, why can't he see it? At the same time, because they seem so interested in this video, I bring a kind of a frame by frame printout of this video with Hebrew subtitles on paper to the interrogation today. And I handed it to him. I'm moving back like 5 minutes. This is before he went through my phone. I handed it to him, and it's as if I'm showing him something that he's never seen before. He's looking at it so closely. He's highlighting things. He's taking notes. I can't believe it because this is the video that I've been talking about in every interrogation, in every court hearing. And it looks like he's never seen it before. He puts it on his side of the desk as if he's going to keep it. So in that moment, I thought to myself, maybe what's happening, like I can watch it on my Wi-Fi. I can watch it on my cell phone. They don't believe me that it exists. And then I show them a paper that proves it exists and they click on a thing and it doesn't load for them on their network. I think the police were censored from accessing the video. I think that everyone else could see it, and then I would tell them about it, and they just don't believe me because they can't access it. And I actually read, it kind of clicked for me. I read this When Google Met WikiLeaks, is a book by Julian Assange, and in it he says in the UK and China, he gives a few other examples. He says the networks that the censorship offices censor videos and information first is the police station, is the politicians. Because if the policemen and the politicians don't know that a video is around, then they can't get angry or reprimand those who work at the censorship office. So it's not even political. It's kind of just like covering their own asses in like a bureaucratic way. So they censor those videos so they don't get in trouble for allowing, videos to exist inside of Israel. I don't know if that's exactly what happened, but after I showed him that paper, it was kind of like an aha moment. Like he finally softened up a little bit. Like this is the guy who interrogated me 7 hours a day before. And he let me leave. Like they said it was just, I was only going to be there for a short while because it was just the phone. So I left and I'm thinking like, this is either they let me leave because they finally got my iPhone passcode, or they let me leave because this honestly seems what it is. It's like they did not believe this video exists, and now they believe this video exists. So I left. Now it's like the Jewish high holiday. So they tell us like, you're not going to hear from us for 4 days, 5 days. And that brings me to the 20th when I'm supposed to find out if I'm getting rearrested or if I'm able to go home. So during that 5 days, I put together an exhaustive dossier of every instance of this information appearing in Israeli media. Like 17 or 18 examples, 20 pages long, screenshots, dates. I also sent an MP4 file of that video, of the PBS video, so it can't be, censored by the internet or whatever. Like it's just a file that they can watch. I sent over some statements of concern from, people who I've worked with in America. I sent them that Robert F. Kennedy Jr. tweet, just because I thought that held a lot of weight, with any court. So I gave them everything I could. I did a lot of research on the computer at my lawyer's office, and finally, it's the day where I find out what they're doing with me, and my lawyer gets a call, and they say, "Can Mr. Loffredo book a flight out of the country as soon as possible?" And she says, "Well, he does already have a flight the 23rd." They said, "No, sooner." And so she called me. I said,
Today.
Yeah. She's like, ASAP. She called me. She said, they want you to book a flight out of the country as soon as possible. I said, I don't have a phone, a wallet, a computer. I don't have anything. She said, just go to my office, figure it out. I booked the flight. I sent her the flight information. She sent it to the police. And then the police went incommunicado entirely. So we sent her the flight. She said, okay, they asked you to book a flight. They haven't said anything after, but let's give someone, power of attorney and send them to this West Bank military compound where your stuff is at. Let's see if they'll give them the passport, the phone, and the laptop, and let's just see. So we sent a friend to this compound, and he was able to get my stuff. He brought it back to me. So I had my phone, my laptop, my passport. I mean, my phone and laptop. It's like at this point, I don't want them. I feel like it's more dangerous to have them with me. But they give me everything back with my passport, and I book my flight. She calls the police one more time and says, okay, you gave him the stuff back. You told him to book a flight. Can you give him maybe a letter or something that says like he can leave the country, that he can show to the airport authorities? Because, Ben Gurion is like the most securitized airport in the world. Right. So to be moving through there, being accused of a terrorist just the day before, it would, it'd be a mess. So they didn't answer that. They said they didn't answer. They didn't give me any type of paper, any type of permission to leave the country. Like, they said nothing to me. They went incommunicado entirely. So I just shrug and I cross my fingers and I bring everything to the airport. I bring a letter from my lawyer that has the detectives' names and numbers on it. They interrogate me once at the airport. I show them news articles that say the 20th is the date where I find out what's happening. I show them a letter from my lawyer. At this point, it's like they don't want to step on the toes of the higher up intelligence officers who were dealing with my case. Right. They're just airport workers. They're kind of confused. They look at the Grayzone website because I tell them it's for the Grayzone, and their eyes are wide and they're rolling their eyes. They're saying mean things, but at the end of the day, they let me go. And I get on the plane and I leave. And I spoke to my lawyer after I landed in Italy, because it was Israel to Italy to New York. And she said what they did was, it's like, this is called like informal deportation. Right. They leave your case open. They don't tell you to leave the country, but they give you your passport back. And so you leave the country, your case is still open. And the idea is to get you out of the country and to dissuade you from ever coming back. Because if I ever went back, I would have an open case related to, aiding the enemy. And I'd be detained immediately, and I would go back to court, and it would be a big problem. So they didn't have the information to actually deport me, because to deport someone, you have to charge them with something. So there was nothing to charge me with. So they opted for this informal deportation and hope that I never come back.
So it must break your heart that you're not able to return to this wonderful place anymore. I would imagine.
Yeah, it's true.
I hear it's an oasis of democracy in the Middle East.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Truly. Well, chocolate pudding is definitely getting added to the BDS list after that. That's my main takeaway. No question about that. Hear that, everybody? No chocolate pudding. Pass it, but leave it on the shelf.
Hey, come see us on tour. We're going to be in Los Angeles, Columbus, Ohio, Dayton, Cleveland, Cincinnati, Lexington, Kentucky, Burbank, California, and Honolulu. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for tickets.